Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Dragons and Dice. Today we're going to be going over those two full casters, the new 24 Wizard and the 24 Sorcerer. Welcome to Dragons and Dice. Okay, up first we'll tackle the Wizard, and starting off at level 1, you're going to get your spell casting, and that'll include being a ritual caster, as all wizards are, and then you'll also get the arcane recovery feature, and that lets you, when you finish a short rest, get your spell slots back equal to 1/2 your wizard level, rounded up, so 1 at this level. At level 2, you're going to get a new feature, and this one's called Scholar, and now you can pick one of your wizard skills, the Arcana, History, Investigation, Medicine, Nature, or Religion, and you get expertise in that. And I like this because it makes sense. You spend a lot of time studying spells, and you would think you would pick up some of that other stuff while you were in those arcane libraries, finding that forbidden knowledge. Level 3 is going to be a subclass, like for all classes. And then level 4 will be your stat point increase, or you can pick a feat. And then at level 5, you get a feature called Memorize Spell. And this is when you finish a short rest, you can replace one of your prepared spells with a different spell that you have in your spell book. And this is a crazy thing about the wizard class, and it goes to show just how strong spells are in D&D. This is the last feature you get until level 18. You'll get your subclass features at level 3 when you start 6, 10, and 14, and you get your ASIs every 4 levels where you either pick stats or feats. But other than that, you just get more spells as you level up. That's all it takes to make wizards one of the strongest classes in the game, is having the best spell list. But at level 18, you do get a feature, and that feature is called Spell Mastery. And here you get to choose a first level and a second level spell, and you basically get to turn them into cantrips. You always have them prepared, and you can cast them at the lowest level without expending a spell slot. If you do want to upcast them, you do have to spend the extra spell slots for upcasting them, and you can change one of these out on each long rest. At level 19, like all classes, you'll get your epic boon, and then your level 20 capstone is called signature spells. And here you get to pick 2 level 3 spells in your spell book as your signature spells. And you'll always have these prepared, and you can cast each of them one time without expending a spell slot. You get this ability back on a short and a long rest, and like the level 18 feature, if you want to upcast these spells, you have to spend the extra spell slots for them. And that's all there is on the base wizard class. Let's check out the 4 subclasses that we get. And for those, you'll get to pick between the Abjurer, the Diviner, the Evoker, or the Illusionist. We're going to start off with the Abjurer, and this is one of my favorite subclasses for wizards. These are the wizards that are all about protection, counterspell, dispelling, and just basically keeping the party safer. And at level 3, the first subclass feature you're going to get is Abjuration Savant. And here you get to choose 2 wizard spells from the Abjuration school, no higher than level 2, and you can add them to your spell book for free. And when you gain a new spell level, so each time you get like 3rd level spells or 4th level spells, etc., you can add 1 Abjuration spell to your spell book for free, but you do have to be able to cast it. So you can't add spells that are higher than your level. The other thing you get at level 3 is your Arcane Ward, and this is one of the big features of this subclass. When you cast a slotted Abjuration spell, you can create a ward and add HP into that ward each time you cast an Abjuration spell. This ward has hit points that's equal to twice your wizard level plus your intelligence mod, and it takes the damage before you do. And if you have any resistances, it gets those as well. And when it hits 0 HP, then you take any leftover damage. So if you had a 12-point ward and got hit for 15, you would take 3. The other feature of this ward is that each time you cast an Abjuration spell, it recharges the ward 2 times what the spell's level was. So if you 3rd level Abjuration spell, your ward will regain 6 HP, which is a really nice way of keeping you in your School of Magic and boosting your ward up as you cast shields and counter spells and all sorts of things to help the party out. Your level 6 feature is called Projected Ward. And with this, you can take and use your ward that you've put up to protect other people. When a creature you can see that's within 30 feet of you takes damage, you can take a reaction and project your ward and reduce the damage that creature takes. And the same thing applies here. If your ward hits 0 HP, the creature that you're protecting now takes the damage that's over the ward. And if that creature has resistances or vulnerabilities, so if you cast this on a barbarian and they resisted bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, your ward would also resist that. So it gets to take on those same resistances. Your level 10 subclass feature is called Spellbreaker. And now you always have Counterspell and Dispel Magic prepared. And you can cast Dispel Magic as a bonus action. And you get to add your proficiency bonus to the ability check for it. And when you cast either of these, the spell slot isn't expended if it doesn't stop the spell from being cast. And I love this. It seems really nice to just be counterspelling all the time. It boosts your ward. And then if you miss with your counterspell, it's not that big a deal because it didn't cost you the spell slot. It's just got some good versatility and a lot of use in battle. Counterspell is an awesome spell to have. At level 14, you get a feature called Spell Resistance, and now you have advantage on saving throws against spells, and you have resistance to spell damage. I mean, that's just huge. Just half off of anything that's a spell from here on out. That's amazing. So this has always been one of my favorite wizard classes. I really like the way this works. The action economy is always kind of on a wizard just because you have your big spells and your concentration spells. But here, you now have Dispel Magic as a bonus action, which gives you good use of that if there's stuff going on that's useful for. And then you've got Counterspell as a reaction. And these are just, you get to fill out your turn with using your action for spells, Dispelling Magic with your bonus action, and then using your reaction to counterspell the enemy. And all that also is boosting your ward and your survivability of you and your team. I love this wizard class. I think they'd be great and fun to play. Next up, we have the Diviner, and these are probably the strongest of the wizard subclasses. They just get so many cool things that let them just shine throughout the day. Starting off, and this is going to be a running theme for all the wizard subclasses, you're going to get Divination Savant, and here you get 2 spells from the School of Divination, level 2 or down. And when you gain access to new level wizard spells, you also get 1 divination spell that you can add to your spell book for free. Just like the Abjurer, you have to be able to cast this spell, so you can't be level 2 and grab a level 7 wizard spell. And then at level 3, this is the main feature for this subclass, you get the ability called Portent. And when you finish a long rest, you can roll 2 d20s and you save the rolls. You can then replace any d20 roll made by you or someone you can see for the rest of the day. There are a couple caveats to this. You have to do this before they make the roll. So you don't get to see that the big baddie dropped a crit or that your teammate, totally whiffed before you get to change out the roll with one of yours. You can also only do this to 1 roll per turn, and you can't stockpile these. They disappear when you start another long rest. The next subclass feature you get at level 6, and it's called Expert Divination. And now you're so good at divination spells that when you cast a divination spell that is level 2 or higher, you can regain 1 spell slot of a lower tier. The spell slot can't ever go higher than level 5, though. So if you cast a level 7 divination spell, you can only still get back a level 5 spell slot. At level 10, your subclass features, and you get a boost to your perception, and as a bonus action, you can choose one of these benefits, and it will last you until you take a short or a long rest. And the 3 you get to pick from is you can get dark vision if you don't have it, up to 120 feet. You can get greater comprehension, and now you can read any language, or you can get the ability to see invisible. And you can cast the See Invisible spell now without a spell slot. So it's not something that's just on with that last one, but you do get the ability to just cast it anytime you need. And you get this ability back each time you finish a short or long rest. At level 14, your capstone for this subclass is going to be Greater Portent. And now instead of 2 d20s when you finish a long rest, you get to roll 3 and use them throughout the day, which is really awesome because it's 3 times that you get to just change any creature. And I think that's what really makes this class so strong is that it's just got an unstoppable way of affecting the battle that you're the only person that has a say in it. Our next subclass will be the Evoker, and these will be the wizards that are the best at all those awesome damage spells that D&D has. Fire, frost, lightning, acid, all those juicy elements that just leave everything in its wake dead. And starting off at level 3, you're going to get Evocation Savant. Just like the last two, you get to pick 2 wizard spells from the Evocation spell list, and you get a new Evocation spell each time you get access to a new level of wizard spells. And then their level 3 feature that you get is when you miss with a cantrip that has attack rolls or that the target succeeds on a save, it still takes half damage from the cantrip now. If there are any additional effects like a slow or a knock prone or anything like that, and they pass the save for that, those don't get added on, but they're always going to take at least half damage. This seems like it's going to be really awesome to me. You're going to be able to do reliable damage at any armor class, albeit not as much as you normally do if you hit with a full spell or whatever. But if you have disadvantage on an attack roll or someone's behind partial cover or anything that would do to mitigate your ability to hit that person, this is going to have tons of applications because now, no matter what happens, they're going to take half damage from your cantrip. And as you level up, you get to fire off, a bunch of dice with each cantrip that you use. I think this is going to scale and be a really viable subclass feature for the Evoker. At level 6, you're going to get the Sculpt spell ability, and this used to be at level 2, which but also wasn't really that useful that early because, let's face it, you weren't casting fireballs until level 5, and that's when it seems like you really need it. So this is probably spot on for the level now. But now when you cast an evocation spell that affects other creatures that you can see, you can choose a number of them equal to the spell's level +1, and they just auto-pass the save for that spell, and they take no damage from it. And then at level 10, when you cast a wizard spell from the evocation school, you can add your intelligent modifier to one of the damage rolls for that spell. So at that point, you're probably up to like at least +4 for every turn, so it'll just be a little extra cheddar on the top. And then at level 14, you get a really interesting spell ability, and it's called Overchannel. And what this is going to allow you to do is you can increase the power of your spells. When you cast a spell that's level 1 to 5 that deals damage, you can just auto do max damage with that spell. And the first time you do this, it's free. But the next time you do it, it has consequences, and they're pretty steep. So if you try to do this again, like you're in that big boss fight and you want to just max out damage on whatever you're casting, the second time that you try to use this, you take 2d12 necrotic damage for each level of the spell. So if you cast a level 5 spell with this and take that damage, it would be 10d12. That's about enough to wipe out a wizard at level 14, or real close. And this damage, it ignores resistances and immunities. And if you were to live through the second casting and try to do it again, the next time you try to do this, on the third time, you would take 3d12 for each level of the spells that you have. So it gives you a really nice, I'm going to drop the hammer on these guys and girls, and then if that wasn't a big enough hammer, you get to trade basically your life away for that big fireball. The last subclass that we get for wizards is the Illusionist, and these are so much fun. Starting off at level 3, you get Illusion Savant, and that's going to work the same as the other subclasses did, except with illusion spells. But then you also get Improved Illusions, and now you can cast illusion spells without verbal components, which is really sweet because you can be very sneaky with this. And if that spell has a range of at least 10 feet or more, that range is now boosted by an extra 60 feet. So it allows you to really stretch out with your illusion spells. You also get to know the minor illusion cantrip. And if you already have that, you can pick a different cantrip. And it doesn't count against the cantrips known for your wizard class. And here's the real kicker of this subclass that makes it so much fun, is when you cast minor illusion, you can cast it with both the image and with sound in just a single casting. And you can do that as a bonus action. I love this. It basically lets you be a light weaver. I mean, shout out to Stormlight Archives and Brandon Sanderson. And how fun would it be, since now it's a bonus action and a cantrip, and wizards have terrible bonus action economy, especially early on, that while you're in battle, you can just make illusions that are making noise and distracting monsters and still be able to cast a spell each round. I know mechanically it doesn't do anything for you, but man, it seems fun to have, all your little illusions popping up each time, every round, to just be kind of how you fight. And if you have a DM that's willing to play along with that, it might eat up some turn economy for the bad guys because, maybe you made a sound from over there and the people that were coming into the fight left. And it seems like it would have a lot of like inter combat roleplay capabilities. And I love that when that gets added to a D&D game. Your level 6 subclass feature is called Phantasmal Creatures, and you get to summon beast and summon face spells, and they are always prepared for you. And you can change their school of magic to illusion. And when you do that, you can make them appear spectral. And you can cast this illusion version of these spells one time for free with no spell slot needed. But the summon that you have with that spell only has half its normal HP when you conjure it this way. And you get this free cast back on a long rest. Your level 10 feature is called Illusory Self. And when a creature hits you with an attack roll, you can use your reaction to make a fake version of yourself in between you and the attacker. And this causes the attack to miss automatically. The illusion then vanishes. And you can use this feature one time per short or long rest, or you can use a level 2 spell slot and use it back. And the best part about that is this is free action. So you can just trade in that level 2 spell mid-combat as a reaction and do this every time that you need to. Your level 14 capstone feature is called Illusory Reality, and now you can weave magic into your illusions and make them semi-real. When you cast an illusion spell that has a slot, you can choose one inanimate magical object that's part of that illusion and make it real. And it takes a bonus action to do this on your turn while the spell is ongoing. And the example they give in the player's handbook is that you could make a fake bridge and then you could take your bonus action and turn it into a real bridge. I like the pro move of making that bridge, watching the enemy try to walk across of it, fall off a cliff, then you turn it to a real bridge and walk over and gloat as they fall to their death below you. But it's really cool that you get to take your illusion spells and kind of like mold them into the world. These only last for a minute, sadly, but it's still some really awesome sweet flavor. Now it's time for the homebrewed item of the week. This week's homebrewed item is the Cloud's Delight Boots of Flight. And these are a play on a D&D classic, the Winged Boots. And so one of the ways I like to make homebrewed items is take something that's always been in the game and then add in a once a day or once a week ability and then add a couple little other, pieces of flair onto it. And then you have a completely unique item that fits in with the campaign that you're running. So this pair of boots was gifted by a cloud giant to one of the characters in my campaign. And the way this works is when he clicks his heels together, a small cloud, shout out to Goku and his Nimbus, appears around his feet. And then he now has his fly speed. Then that's the flavor that we added to this. And then we added on some cool features. The first of these is they have an auto activation feather fall, but it burns 1 hour of use of the boots. And if you're going to take fall damage and you have it over an hour of use left on the boots, they'll automatically activate and you won't take that. They also give you the hover ability while you're have them activated, and while you're on your cloud, you can't be knocked prone. And then once a week, we have a special ability called the Lightning Flyover. When you activate this ability, any creature that you pass directly over will take lightning damage from the storm that's erupting from the bottom of your cloud, and they'll take 5d8 lightning damage, but this can only be taken once per turn, and it happens to every creature that you pass over, friend or foe. I like this. It's got a lot of flavor. It's really on point with the feeling that the Cloud Giant was the gift that he gave. It's got a big once-a-week cooldown that's an interesting, unique ability. Add one to your game. I'm sure your players will love it. Now it's time to check out the new 2024 Sorcerer. And starting off with this class, the biggest change is that you no longer get your Sorcerer's Origin right off the bat. Like all the classes, that's been moved to level 3 and integrated with the subclasses. But we'll go over what we get in the base class, and then we'll check each of those out. So starting at level 1, you're going to get spellcasting, and that's the same as it always has been. You'll get your list of spells, pick off the sorcerer's list, and have a set number that you can prepare. And then the other level 1 feature you get is innate sorcery. And this is a new feature, and it lets you twice a day increase the spell save DC of your spells by 1, and it gives you advantage on all sorcerer spells that require attack rolls. and you get this back on a long rest, I think this is going to make Sorcerers possibly the strongest class now. I mean, it's just OP. You're going to get advantage for a minute long, twice a day, whenever you need it, higher spell save DCs. It's basically like Reckless Attack for Barbarians, except with spells, and it doesn't have any downsides. At level 2, you're going to get a feature called Font of Magic. And when you get your sorcerer points equal to your level, you can trade them in for spell slots or vice versa. And the big change to this is that converting spell slots to sorcery points is now free action. So if you really need to pop off some meta magic, you can just burn those spell slots mid-turn and not use any action economy. Going the other way from sorcery points to spell slots does take a bonus action though. The other level 2 feature you get is that's now where you get your meta magic, which is basically the driving force for this class. And this is one level earlier than it used to be, which is cool. And you're going to get to pick 2 of the meta magic options from the list. We'll go over those now. First up, you have Careful Spell, and this costs 1 sorcery point. And when you cast a spell that forces a saving throw, you can protect some of the creatures in the area. You can pick a number of creatures equal to your charisma mod, and those people auto pass the save and take no damage. It's like basically a sorcery version of the Sculpt spell ability that evocation wizards get. The next one is Distant Spell. This also costs 1 point. And when a spell has a range of at least 5 feet, you can spend a point to double that range, and touch spells that you make with this now have a 30-foot range. There is Empowered Spell. It also costs 1 point. And when you roll damage for a spell, you can spend the sorcery point and re-roll a number of die up to your charisma mod, but you have to use the new rolls. And this can be added onto a spell that you've already used meta magic on. So it's just a way for bumping up the damage if you were to have like a fireball that you dropped 5 ones on or something terrible. You have Extended Spell. This costs 1 sorcery point. And when you cast a spell that has a duration of a minute or longer, you can spend the points to double the time up to 24 hours. If it requires concentration, you now have advantage on the save. And that's something new they've added in, which is really nice because if you have a spell you really need to concentrate on and have this meta magic ability, it might be worth spending the point to have advantage on your concentration saves. Since being a sorcerer, you already have proficiency in that, you would almost guarantee that you would always pass your concentration saving throws. You have Heightened Spell. This one costs 2 points. And when you cast a spell that forces a saving throw, you can spend the points to give one of the targets in that spell's area disadvantage on the save. And it's kind of nice. This has been reduced by 1 point. It used to cost 3 to do this. And then the one that everyone uses, Quicken Spell. You can spend the points to change the casting time of a spell from an action to a bonus action. But the thing to remember, and if you're playing a sorcerer, I'm sure you know this, you can still only cast 1 leveled spell per round. There is Seeking Spell. It costs 1 point, and this is a new meta magic. And when you make an attack roll for a spell and you miss, you can spend a point and re-roll that d20 and see if you can hit. And you can do this even if you've already used meta magic on that spell. So if you've quickened a cantrip and then miss with it, you could drop another sorcery point, put Seeking Spell on it, and get to re-roll that d20. There's the Transmuted Spell. It costs 1 point, and it's also new. And when you cast a spell that does acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison, or thunder damage, you can spend a point and change that damage type to a different one from that same list, which would be really nice utility if you found out something had a resistance that you weren't expecting and still want to be able to use the spells that you have. Then there's the Twin Spell, and this costs 1 point. And when you cast a spell that can target an additional creature by upcasting, like Charm Person or something along those lines, you can spend this point and increase the spell's effective level by 1. And this has gotten a bit of a boost. It used to be that you had to match the spell's level in sorcery points to target that second person, but now it's just 1 for every spell that you twin. So that's a nice little upgrade for this. Makes it way more useful. At level 3, we're going to get our subclasses, and for these we have the Aberrant, the Clockwork, the Draconic, and the Wild Magic Sorcery. At level 4, you'll get your stat point increase or feat, and at level 5, you get a feature called Sorcerer's Restoration. This used to be the level 20 capstone, but they've moved it way down, and they've kind of dialed it back just a little bit to fit the level. Used to, you got 4 sorcery points back on a short rest. Now you get up to half your sorcery points back when you finish a short rest, but it doesn't let you go over your maximum, so you can't stockpile any with this. And you can only do this once a day. I mean, they've tweaked it down a little, but it's coming 15 levels earlier, and this is a really nice way of you being able to start most fights with a good chunk of your sorcery points. So I like it. Level 6 will be a subclass feature. And then at level 7, you get an ability called Sorcery Incarnate. And this says that if you have no uses of innate sorcery left, you can spend 2 sorcery points to activate it as a bonus action. And now when you use your innate sorcery, you can use up to 2 meta magics on each spell that you cast. It seems really awesome, but it's also really going to burn through some sorcery points. If you every round you're putting out, 2 twin spells with all kinds of extra stuff added to them, you're going to really burn through the sorcery points. But if you need to, I think it's going to make great for some Nova damage rounds. Level 8, you get your stat point increase or feat. And level 9 is nothing. You just get a level 5 spell at that level. Level 10, you get to pick 2 more meta magic options. So now you'll have 4. And then level 11 is also open, but it is where you get level 6 spells. And then at level 12, like all classes, you get your feat or stat point increase. Level 13, that's when you get your 7th level spells. 14 is a subclass feature. 15 is 8th level spells. 16 is another stat point or feat. At level 17, you get 2 more meta magic options, and you finally get your 1 9th level spell slot. 18 is the last subclass feature. 19's Epic Boon for all classes. And then when you get to your level 20 capstone, it's Arcane Apotheosis. And while your innate sorcery feature is active, you can use 1 meta magic option on each of your turns without spending sorcery points on it. I mean, that's really nice. This capstone is going to be way better than the old one. But do keep in mind, at this point, when your innate sorcery is going, you can put 2 on each spell if you choose. And so depending on what you're doing, you'll still have to spend some of your sorcery points, but getting to spend 1 per turn for free, that's always great. So let's check out the subclasses. Up first, we have the Aberrant Sorcerer, and these are the creepy psionic mind-bending sorcerers. Something's gotten in their head, and now they use that to get into other people's heads. And at level 3, you're going to get a spell list that reflects that, and you'll get more of these at 5, 7, and 9, and you always have these prepared, and they don't count against the spells that you get to prepare for your class. And at level 3, you get the Arms of Hadar, Calm Emotions, Detect Thoughts, Dissonant Whispers, and Mind Sliver. At level 5, you get the Hunger of Hadar and Sending. 7 brings you Avard's Black Tentacles and Summer Aberration. And at 9, you get Rory's Telepathic Bond and Telekinesis. Then the other level 3 feature that you get with this subclass is you get Telepathic Speech. And you can pick 1 creature and you can communicate telepathically. This takes a bonus action, and they have to be within 30 feet of you when you cast it. But it can keep this link up to a number of miles equal away from you that equals your charisma mod. And it lasts a number of minutes equal to your sorcerer level. And I'm just going to take a little sidebar here. This seems really strange to me. Let's say you're level 3. You've got +3 charisma at this point. You can communicate for 3 miles of range, but they had to be within 30 feet of you when you cast it. And this only lasts for 3 minutes, which means that they have to be able to run at 60 miles an hour to get outside of the range. I know it's just probably some strange writing or an overlook, but even at level 20, you would have this spell up for 20 minutes, and they would be able to get up to a 5-mile range. It's strangely worded. It's still really cool and something you can do for free just all the time, so I like it. At level 6, you get Psionic Sorcery, and this says that when you cast any level 1+ spell from your subclass spell list, you can cast the sorcery points instead of using the spell slot. And the sorcery points have to equal the spell's level. And when you do this, you get to cast this without using any verbal somatic components, and it doesn't require materials unless they would be consumed by the spell. The other level 6 feature you get is Psychic Defense, and you now have resistance to psychic damage, and you have advantage against Charmed and Frightened, which is always 2 good ones to have advantage against. And then level 14, and this is the one where this class turns just full on creepy, and I absolutely love it. It's called Revelation in Flesh, and as a bonus action, you can spend 1 sorcery point or more to magically alter your body in either of these ways, and they each last for 10 minutes. And there's a few of these to go over. The first one is aquatic adaptations, and you gain a swim speed equal to twice your normal speed, which is nice. You're going to be getting it through the water. And you can breathe water as you grow gills on your neck or behind your ears, and your fingers become webbed, or you grow wriggling cilia. I mean, it's just like, ooh. This class just has some written in awesome kind of creepy flavor, like your whole body's covered in little cilia that help you swim. The next ability you can activate is called glistening flight, and you get a fly speed with hover equal to your speed. And the gross part of this one is now your skin glistens with mucus as you fly, or you glow with like a backlit other bodily light. And then the next one you get is see invisible, and you can see invisible creatures within 60 feet of you that aren't in total cover. So that one seems pretty solid, but they didn't wait to add in some ick factor, because your eyes turn solid black or they become writhing sensory tentacles. And it's just like, ew. And then the last one that you get is worm-like movement. Your body and all your gear becomes slimy and pliable, and you can move through space as narrow as 1 inch, and you can spend 5 feet of movement to escape non-magical restraints or from being grappled. And like, anyone remember the first X-Men movie where they experiment on the senator guy and he like basically turns into water slime and squeezes out of his cell bars? That's basically what this ability lets you do. So awesome and kind of gross and creepy at the same time. And then for this subclass is Capstone, that comes at level 18, and it's called Warping Implosion. And now you can unleash a space warping anomaly, so you make a black hole basically. And as a magic action, you can teleport up to 120 feet to a spot you can see. After you vanish, every creature within 30 feet of the spot you left has to make a strength save versus your spell DC. And on a fail, they take 3d10 and are pulled to the spot that you left. And on a save, they take half, but they resist the pull. And you can do this once per long rest, or you can spend 5 sorcery points and do it again. So it's a nice little bit of utility for if you're out in the middle of stuff and don't want to be. You can suck everybody into the same spot, pop out, and then the next person that gets to go has everybody all grouped up for a big AoE splash. So a nice little spell if you get this high in your campaign. I like these guys. They're really creepy, and they have a really nice spell list. I think it'd be a really fun one to play for all the flavor and roleplay that this class would add. All right, for the next subclass, let's move from the creepy to the efficient. These are people that there are rules to follow people, and there are structures to be upheld. And we're talking about the Clockwork Sorcerers. And at level 3, you're going to get a set of spells, just like all the subclasses will. And at 3, you get Aid, Alarm, Lesser Restoration, Protection from Evil and Good. At level 5, you get Dispel Magic and Protection from Energy. 7 brings you Freedom of Movement and Summon Construct. And at level 9, you get Greater Restoration and Wall of Force. 2 just absolutely must-have spells there. And another cool thing that they add into this subclass in the player's handbook is they get a flavorful manifestation that when they cast these spells, cool little effects happen, like spectral cogs float around behind you, or your eyes have clock hands that rotate around, and your skin starts shining like brass, or you see math equations floating through the air. And it's just like a nice little flavor thing that they added into the handbook that kind of lets people add it into their character's class as they play out through the game. And then the other level 3 feature you get is called Restore Balance. And when a creature is about to roll with advantage or disadvantage, you can use your reaction to just nullify that. And so you can do this equal to your charisma mod that many times each day. And you get these back on a long rest. Your level 6 feature is called the Bastion of Law. And as a magic action, you can expend 1 to 5 sorcery points, and it creates a ward of d8s equal to that number of sorcery points around a creature that you pick. And then when that creature takes damage, you can expend these d8s from the ward, roll them, and reduce the damage by the amount rolled. And you get this back when you finish a long rest. Your level 14 feature is the Trance of Order. And as a bonus action, you can enter a trance state. And in this state, you can't benefit from advantage. And when you roll a d20, you can treat any 9 or lower as a 10. And you can do this once per long rest, or you can spend 5 sorcery points and do it again, which would be pretty costly unless you had like disadvantage and really needed to nullify that for something important. But it does give you that option. Your level 18 capstone is called the Clockwork Cavalcade. And you take a magic action and you can summon spirits from a 30-foot cube. They look like Modrons or constructs of your choice. They are invulnerable, and they create the following effects in that 30-foot cube. You can heal 100 points split amongst the creatures that are in the cube, however you choose. They can repair, and any damaged object in the cube is instantly repaired. And then they can dispel, and every level 6 spell effect and down ends on creatures and objects of your choice. So gives you a nice little bit of heal, fix stuff, and take off status effects. So a nice little capstone feature for these guys. And they're a really fun class to play. They really give you a good chance of manipulating your advantages and disadvantages for the whole party as you move forward. The next subclass we have for the sorcerers is the draconic sorceries. And these are the ones that have been touched by a dragon in some way, and that's what everything in the subclass will reflect. And at level 3, the spells you get are Alter Self, Chromatic Orb, Command, and Dragon's Breath, obvious choice. Level 5, you get Fear and Fly. Level 7, you get Arcane Eye and Charm Monster. And then at level 9, you get Legend Lore and Summon Dragon. I feel like of all the spell list, this one may be the most like on point and on the nose for all the things. Alter Self is basically like a form of polymorph that dragons can do, and then all the other goodies that fit right in, Fear, Fly, all that. So I really like that spell list. The other level 3 feature we get is called Draconic Resilience, and you gain 3 hit points when you get to this level, and then you get 1 more hit point every time you level up. So it's basically like the tough feat. And then you get an armor class that equals 10 plus your dex and charisma mod added together. So that sounds really amazing to me. You could do something like play a dwarf, draconic sorcerer, take the tough feat, do a high charisma and dexterity build, and then you could have like a 17 armor class at level 3 and be getting plus 3 HP for every level that you got. You'd be super tanky for a full caster. And I think that just sounds really awesome way to play a sorcerer if you wanted to not be quite so squishy. You're still going to only have a D6 for a hit die, but with the plus 3 every level, you'd be basically getting like average fighter HP every round. At level 6, you get a feature called Elemental Affinity, and now you get to pick a damage type between acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison, and you get resistance to that damage. And when you cast spells that deal that type of damage, you can now add your charisma mod to one of the damage rolls of that spell. So a little extra cheddar on top. And then at 14, you get a feature called Dragon Wings, and you can guess what that does. As a bonus action, you can cause Draconic Wings to appear. They last for 1 hour, which is really lasts a long time, and you get a fly speed of 60 feet. And you can do this once per long rest, or you can spend 3 sorcery points and do it again. And then at level 18 capstone, you get a feature called the Dragon Companion. And you can cast Summon Dragon without any materials, and you can cast it once for free without a spell slot. And the joy of this is you can modify this spell when you cast it this way so that it doesn't need concentration, which just sounds amazing to me. And hear me out. I'm going to sweet talk the bard. I'm going to ask him to cast True Polymorph on me, turn me into a dragon while I summon a free dragon, and then concentrate on another one, and then we're rolling 3 dragons large in to start the fight. I think it just sounds awesome if you got somebody that's willing to burn that True Polymorph on you. And for the last subclass, it's time to let chaos reign, and that's the Wild Magic Sorcerer. And this one's been changed a lot. You're going to get to roll on that Wild Magic Surge chart all the time with this new subclass. So, starting off at level 3, you get Wild Magic Surge, and you get this instead of a extra spell list that you'll have prepared because the Wild Magic chart kind of takes that spot. And when you cast a spell, it can cause weird stuff to happen. Once per turn, after you cast a slotted spell, you can roll a d20, and on a 20, you get to roll on the Wild Magic Surge chart. And if that chart ends up casting another spell, you cannot add meta magic to it because it's just too chaotic and you aren't allowed to. The other level 3 feature you get is called Tides of Chaos. And the way this feature works is that you give yourself advantage on a d20 test before you make the d20 roll. And once you do this, you have to either cast a sorcerer spell or finish a long rest before you can do it again. But the joy of this is a way for you to always get to roll on your Wild Magic Surge chart. Because after you give yourself this advantage and then cast a sorcery spell, you automatically get to roll. So this means you could be rolling that Wild Magic Surge chart multiple times in an individual fight. And this is just going to be awesome because that was always one of the problems with the Wild Magic Sorcerer was that if the DM didn't let you roll on the chart, and then if you didn't roll well, you could go, weeks and weeks without ever getting to actually use what your whole subclass feature was based around. And I really like this. So moving forward, before we go any farther, let's check out this Wild Magic search chart. And so I'll just run through what the numbers are and what each of them do. On a 1 to 4, you get to roll on the chart every turn for the next minute, but you always use whatever the new roll is. It supersedes the previous roll. 5 to 8, a random creature appears that's friendly toward you, and you get to roll a d4, and you can either get a Modron Flump, a Modron Monodrone, or a Unicorn. 9 to 12, you regain 5 HP at the start of each turn for the next 5 minutes. 13 to 16 on the D100, creatures have a disadvantage on spells you cast against the next minute. 17 to 20, you are subjected to effect that lasts for 1 minute unless it says otherwise in the description, and you roll a d8 to determine this effect. You can be surrounded by faint ethereal music that only you and creatures within 5 feet can hear. Your size can increase. You can grow a long beard made of feathers that remains until you sneeze, at which point the feathers explode. You must shout when you speak. If you roll a 5, illusionary butterflies flutter in the air 10 feet from you. On a 6, an eye appears on your forehead, granting you advantage on wisdom perception checks. A 7, pink bubbles float out of your mouth whenever you speak. And 8, your skin turns a vibrant shade of blue for 24 hours or until the effect is removed by the remove curse spell. 21 to 24, for the next minute, all your spells with a casting time of action have a bonus action casting time now. 25 to 28, you get teleported to the astral plane until the end of your next turn. 29 to 32, the next time that you cast a damage spell within 1 minute, you deal max damage with each of the die on it. 33 to 36, you have resistance to all damage for 1 minute. 37 to 40, you turn into a pot and are incapacitated and vulnerable to all damage. At 0 HP, the pot breaks and you turn back as you were. 41 to 44, you can teleport 20 feet as a bonus action for the next minute. 45 to 48, you and up to 3 creatures you can see within 30 feet have the invisible condition. 49 to 52, a spectral shield hovers in front of you and you get +2 to your armor class and have immunity to magic missiles. 53 to 56, you can take 1 extra action this turn. 57 to 60, you cast a random spell. If the spell normally requires concentration, it doesn't require concentration in this case, but the spell lasts for its full duration. You roll a d10 to determine the spell. On a 1, you get confusion. 2, you cast fireball. 3, you get fog cloud. 4, you get fly, cast on a random creature, not on you. 5, you get grease. 6, you get levitate, cast on yourself. 7, you cast a level 5 magic missile. 8, you cast a mirror image. On a 9, you cast polymorph on yourself, and if you fail the saving throw, you turn yourself into a goat. And if you roll a 10, you cast a see invisibility spell. On a 61 to 64, anything you touch that isn't being worn, carried, or magical for the next minute, you catch on fire. 65 to 68, if you die within the next hour, you are immediately revived by the reincarnation spell. 69 to 72, you are frightened until the end of your next turn, and the DM gets to pick what you're frightened of. 73 to 76, you teleport up to 60 feet to an open space you can see. 77 to 80, a random creature within 60 feet has the poison condition now for 1d4 hours. 81 to 84, you radiate bright light in a 30-foot radius, and any creature that ends its turn within 5 feet of you gets the blinding. On an 85 to 88, you deal 1d10 necrotic damage up to 3 creatures that are within 30 feet of you, and you heal for the damage that you deal out. On an 89 to 92, you deal 4d10 lightning damage on up to 3 creatures within 30 feet of you. On a 93 to 96, you and all creatures in 30 feet of you have vulnerability to the piercing damage for the next minute. And on a 97 to 100, you roll a d6. On a 1, you regain 2d10 hit points. On a 2, one ally of your choice within 300 feet of you regains 2d10 hit points. On a 3, you regain your lowest expended spell level slot. On a 4, an ally of your choice within 300 feet regains their lowest level spell slot. On a 5, you regain all sorcery points. And on a 6, all of the effects from the rows of 17 to 20 affect you simultaneously. So a lot of craziness there. And that's a big chart, but it's something that if you pick this subclass, you're going to be using a lot now because you'll roll on it basically every turn at least once. The level 6 feature for this subclass is called Bend Luck, and after a creature rolls a d20, you can take a reaction and spend a sorcery point to roll a d4, and you can apply that as a plus or a minus to the roll. At level 14, you get an ability called Controlled Chaos, and when you roll on your wild magic chart, you can roll 2 d100s and pick which one to activate. And when you get to the level 18 capstone, its feature is called Tame Surge. And immediately after you cast a sorcerer spell with a spell slot, you can pick which of the wild magic surges you want to activate except for the bottom tier, the 97 to 100 roll. And you can do this ability once per long rest. So that's going to give you a lot of control over it. If you really want a heal or to be able to be rezzed or whatever you want, you'll just once a day be able to pick what you want out of that D100 chart, which I think is awesome. I think the sorcerer subclasses that they've picked are really fun. They've got a lot of flavor. I absolutely love the way they've done the wild magic sorcery. It's such an iconic D&D subclass. I feel like it's really been fixed with how often that D100 surge chart's going to be getting used. And I'm excited to get to run a table for one or to get to play one. Well, folks, that's it for this episode of Dragons and Dice. Thanks for listening, and if you like what we're doing here, please like, subscribe, or leave a review. It really helps with exposure of a new show. So until next time, may your D20s roll high, and may your DMs be kind.